Good day, guys. Today we will be discussing about classical Greek period. Okay, so this represents one of the most transformative eras in human history, laying bedrock for modern Western civilization emerging from the archaic period and flourishing through classical and Hellenistic ages. So this epoch witnessed an unprecedented explosion of intellectual, cultural, and political innovation. So from the rise of democratic institutions in Athens to the enduring philosophical inquiries of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. The achievements of the period established the core framework of modern governance, science, ethics, and aesthetics. Okay, so there are a lot of things that we could learn from classical Greek period. Okay, when it comes to philosophy and logic, not only that, about governance and citizenship, art and architecture, and also literature and theater. Okay, so welcome everyone. Today we are taking a journey back to an era that fundamentally redefined how human beings think, govern, and create. This period is about classical Greek period, spanning from roughly 8, 800 BCE to 200 BCE. So when we look around our world today, guys, whether we are thinking about trial by jury, democratic elections, scientific reasoning, or even modern theater, we are directly engaging with ideas born in ancient Greek city states. So, over this session, guys, we will explore how this extraordinary 6th century span established the foundational pillars of Western civilization. Okay, so let's move on. Let us have the other slide. Not working. Wait for a while, guys. What happened? Okay, okay. Let me share it back to you. Okay. So if I, okay, wait, but it's not moving if it is in full screen. Okay, better if I could have another, okay, wait, okay, let me have it. But it's not moving if I'll be using like this. Wait for a while, guys. Okay, let me share again my slide, my PowerPoint. Okay, so this one. Let me exit. Start moving. Okay, next. Okay, wait, back. This is the last second slide. Okay, let's have chronology of Greek antiquity. Okay, so this is the second slide. Okay, so we have there the Archaic period, 800 to 500 BCE. Okay, here, rise of the polis, city-states, Homeric epics, and initial overseas colonization. Okay, so what do we need to know here? The formation of polis, of course, which is the city-state like Athens and Sparta, written down of the Homeric epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey, and the initial overseas colonization across the Mediterranean and Black Seas. So this period, guys, laid the structural and cultural foundation for Greek identity. I mean, transitioning society away from tribal dark ages toward structured political units and shared epic tradition. Okay, while the other one is Greco-Persian Wars, allied Greek victory of Marathon, Salamis, and Plataea, securing independence. So here, what's the major events here? Major military, or the key events here would be the major military conflicts between the allied Greek city-states and the expanding Achaemenid Empire of Persia, featuring decisive Greek victories at Marathon, Salamis, and Plataea. Okay, here, what's the importance in this period? Defeating Persia, no, preserved Greek independence, prevented foreign subjugation, and unified the independent city-states under a shared sense of triumph, setting the stage for Athenian dominance. Okay, and then we have here in 479 to 323 BCE, classical golden age, flourishing of Athenian democracy, Parthenon construction and philosophy, the height of Athenian democracy now, iconic architectural projects such as construction of the Parthenon, and the rise of the foundational Western philosophy, led by, of course, those philosophers, the three great philosophers, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Okay? And what's important in this age, mark on unprecedented flourish of art. Not only art, but also drama. What else? Political, philosophy, and civic architecture, serving the cultural peak of classical antiquity until the death of Alexander the Great in uh, 323 BCE. And then we have their Hellenistic era campaign of Alexander the Great spreading Greek culture across Asia and Egypt. Okay, 323 to 200 BCE. Here, what do we need to know? We have to know the expansion following the military campaigns of Alexander the Great, which spread Greek, Hellenic culture, language, and institutions across Egypt, the Levant, Mesopotamia, and parts of Central Asia. And the significance that we have to take note here, we have to take note that there was a shift, no? Shifted the focus from localized city-state to globalized cosmopolitan empires, fusing Greek traditions with Near Eastern cultures. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, hard to move. Okay, so we have their polis and politics, transformation of Greek city-states, and the birth of democratic governance in classical antiquity. A polis, what do we mean by that? Was an independent, self-governing city-state that included a central urban center and its surrounding rural countryside. Example of this, Athens, Sparta, and Corinth and Thebes. Okay? The word polis, guys, gives us modern terms like politics, policy, polity, and metropolis. Okay? Take note of this. And then, what else do we need to know here? Before the polis, guys, governance across the ancient world was predominantly monarchical, imperial, or tribal. Power rested in the hands of a single king or emperor. The polis introduced a radical shift. People were no longer merely subjects of a king. They became citizens already with defined legal rights, civic duties, and political rules. Okay? So Greek city-states experimented with various forms of government, including monarchy, oligarchy. Oh, what do we mean by this? Ruled by a few elites. Who are this? The Spartans. Sparta's military oligarchy. Okay? There was tyranny also, ruled by a single leader who seized power outside traditional means. And then we also have here democracy, by the people now. Okay? Demos plus kratos, democracy. Okay? And then the Athenian Democratic Revolution. Athens became the most prominent example of this political evolution, shifting from aristocracy to early forms of rule by populace. Okay? So who are those well-known reformers? We have Solon, Pericles also. Okay? Next, let's move on to another slides. Here, we have here Athens versus Sparta. Okay, so here, divergent models. So the two most powerful, influential city-states in classical Greece, of course, the Athens and Sparta, highlighting how their opposing political systems, economies, and social structures created two radically different societal models, as you can see on the screen. Okay? When it comes to governance, when it comes to military focus, economic base, and culture and values. Okay? Democratic Athens, here, Athens elevated actually the individual citizens' political role. Free adult male citizens participated in open debates and voted on laws, taxation, and war declarations for democratic Athens because of its open trade routes and wealth. Athens became the intellectual capital of Mediterranean, producing foundational works in drama. Okay? And the other one is militaristic Sparta. Okay, how it is different from the other one. Spartan boys entered a mandatory state-run military education system at age 7, designed to build extreme endurance, discipline, and loyalty to the state. Okay? So Sparta's military focus was necessary. Why? To maintain control over the helots. Enslaved agricultural population that far unnumbered Spartan citizens. Okay? Take note that wealth, luxury, and ostentatious art were discouraged in favor of military readiness, physical fitness, and devotion to the police. Okay, so take note that these two divergent models coexisted and famously allied to defeat the Persian Empire during the Greco-Persian Wars. However, guys, there are fundamental differences in ideology, alliances, and of course, not only that, no, regional power struggle eventually led them to clash in the devastating Peloponnesian War that was the year 431 to 404 BCE, which altered the political landscape of ancient Greece. Okay, then let's move on to another slide. Maybe I could, okay. Persian crucible, defending the mainland. Okay, so here, detailing the crucial moment in the early 5th century BCE, where the firstly independent Greek city-states puts aside their internal rivalries to defeat the invading Achaemenid Persian Empire. Okay, so what do we mean when we say crucible? A crucible is a severe test or trial that forces components to fuse together under extreme heat and pressure. Okay, so facing the vast military power of the Persian Empire acted as a severe test example of this. No, it's a metaphor for Greek city-states. And the result, it forced otherwise completing and often hostile polis like Athens and Sparta to form a united defensive front, forging a shared Hellenic identity and military alliance. So there were two massive invasions during this period. Okay, the Achaemenid Persian Empire launched two major campaigns against Greece. The first invasion, led by King Darius, ending in the famous Athenian victory at the Battle of Marathon, and the other one, second invasion, led by King Xerxes. Xerxes. Xerxes one, featuring major engagements such as Thermopylae, Salamis, and Platea. Okay, so it's hard to pronounce the names. Okay, I hope you could bear me, but just you have to read. Okay, bear with me. Okay, so you have to read also the one on the screen. Okay, so let's have this pillars of classical philosophy. Of course, you know them. Who are these people? Who are these philosophers? We have Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. So they focus, they're the fundamental intellectual lineage, no? Here, pillars of classical philosophy focusing on the foundational, intellectual lineage of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. So these are the three thinkers shifted thought from Western, methodological explanation of the universe toward rational, ethical, and systematic inquiry. So let's have first intellectual lineage or lineage. Okay, so here for Socrates, we have Okay. Dialectical inquiry and ethics. Pioneer dialectical inquiry, the Socratic method. What is this? It's a system of rigorous cooperative dialogue through targeted questioning to uncover underlying beliefs, clarity, definition, and expose logical fallacies. Okay? So move philosophy away from natural science toward ethics and virtue. He challenged citizens to question and examine moral assumptions, famously asserting that the unexamined life is not worth living. He left no written works. His thoughts and methods were preserved, primary through writings of his student, and who's his student? Plato. And for Plato, he has this idealism and rational political theory, founded the academy in Athens, widely considered Western civilization's first institution of higher learning. And he authored influential philosophical dialogues, most notably, no, the Republic. So posited that the material world we experience through our senses, this is for Plato, is merely a flowed reflection of an absolute, unchanging world of perfect forms or ideas. So if you try to look at it in the Republic, he explored political justice, proposing a society governed by wise rulers, philosopher kings, rather than standard democracies or monarchies. That's for Plato. For Aristotle, he has this empiricism, empiricism, and systematic categorization. Okay? I repeat, for Aristotle, he established the Lyceum and formalized empirical logical biology and so on and so forth. So he has this thought of empiricism and systematic categorization. So established, of course, as I mentioned, Lyceum in Athens. Okay? And then, unlike Plato's realm of ideal forms, Aristotle focused on observation and categorization of the physical world this time. He believed truth was discovered by examining concrete objects, natural phenomena, and human behavior. So his systematic treatises provided the scientific, logical, and political frameworks that dominated both Western and Islamic thought for over millennium. Okay, let's move on. Intellectual revolution of classical Greece. It's a crucial paradigm shift that transformed how humans understood nature, society, history, and truth. Okay, so we have here rational inquiry, logos over mythos. So prior to this era, guys, take note, natural events like storms, plagues, seasons were attributed directly to the whims of mythological gods. Okay? So Greek thinkers before shifted toward rational, naturalistic explanation based on empirical observation and reason. Okay, so this transition laid the groundwork for natural philosophy and the modern scientific method, replacing divine superstition, which with cause and effect reasoning. Okay, so as I mentioned, there was a shift also when it comes to ethics and governance. So instead of viewing law and morality as rigid divine decrees handed down by deities or absolute monarchs, thinkers systematically analyze morality, justice, and civic responsibility using structured, logical treatises. Okay, to develop early framework from political science, constitutional law, ethical philosophy, questioning what constitutes a just society, and the obligation of a citizen. This is according to uh, the thoughts of these philosophers. Okay, okay, for ethics and governance. For historical methods, Herodotus and Thucydides. So early historical narratives relied on divine intervention to explain human events, gods taking sides in war. Classical historians revolutionized recording history by focusing on human agency and political realism. Okay. I hope you know who is Herodotus, the father of history. Began systematic inquiry, Toria, into human causes, gathering evidence and accounts of the Persian Wars. And the father of scientific history, Thucydides. Okay, he wrote the history of the Peloponnesian War, analyzing human nature, power dynamics, and political motives with strict standards of evidence and impartiality without attributing outcomes to the gods. Okay? And then the last one, we have the enduring legacy, the legacy intellectual methodologies developed during this period, guys, form the foundational canon from European intellectual traditions, the European Enlightenment, and modern academic disciplines, including political theory, history, ethics, logic, and natural science. Okay, let's move on for uh, drama and theater. We have to take note of that during this period, mathematics, medicine, architecture. Okay, so during this period also. Okay, okay. Let's move on. So, cultural and scientific achievements. So, these are some of the major contributions. So, you may read them. Okay. So, major contribution, it's already there. Invented formal tragic comedic drama exploring morals and fate. Okay? So Greek theater, guys, examine deep human questions such as divine law versus human law, morality, free will, okay, and fate also. What's the impact here? Establish theater as a major medium for civic reflection and moral debate, laying the groundwork for modern Western performance art and literature. Okay. Then we have their mathematics, the impact. Okay. Euclid's Elements became the standard textbook for teaching mathematics and logic for over 2 millennia. And then for medicine, the impact transformed medicine into a distinct academic profession based on empirical observation, clinical diagnosis, and professional ethics. And for architecture, the impact of this is that it established classical architectural aesthetics that continue to influence civic buildings, government structures, and monuments globally today. Okay, then let's move on. Okay, look at the Greek cultural and geographic sphere. So here, geographic scope primarily localized to mainland peninsula of Greece and surrounding of Aegean Aegean Islands. The birth of the early policy structure as small independent communities began forming across the region. Okay, 600 BC, that was 800 BCE. Initial region roots. Okay, for 600 BCE, early Mediterranean colonization, okay, overpopulation actually, and a desire for new trade routes led Greek city-state to establish agriculture and commercial colonies throughout the Mediterranean basin. And then let's have 450 BCE, Athenian maritime hegemony. Okay, following the Persian Wars, Athens organized the League, transforming a defensive alliance into a maritime empire with naval bases across the Aegean. Okay, and then the peak empire of the Alexander the Great during the 323 BCE. Alexander the Great's conquest created the absolute peak. Look at the diagram. Created the absolute peak of Greek uh, geographic reach, creating vast trade, linguistic, and cultural network across the three continents. And then Hellenistic kingdom stabilization during the 200 BCE. After Alexander's death, his empire fragmented, slightly contracting geographically but cementing Greek language, architecture, and administration across Near East. Okay, here Hellenistic world and expansion, illustrating how Greek language, art, and the institutional infrastructure blended with Near Eastern cultures following the conquest of Alexander the Great. So we have the Macedonian Empire, okay, King Philip II of Macedon first unified the Greek city-states, and his son Alexander the Great expanded this empire outward. Through ship military campaigns, Alexander defeated the Achaemenid Persian Empire, conquering Egypt, Anatolia. Not only that, Mesopotamia, and stretching all the way to borders of India. So Mesopotamia. Okay, and then there was a vast, of course, conquest, effectively dissolved the isolation of traditional Greek city-states, forging a connected multi-ethnic empire. Okay, for aesthetic diffusion, okay, as Greek settlers, artisans, and soldiers relocated throughout the new empire, Hellenic art styles blended with local traditions. So that's why there's a figurine there. Greek pottery styles such as the black figure and red figure, okay, uh, amphorae pictured Sculpture, proportions, and architectural motif were adapted across Egypt, the Levant, and Central Asia. Okay, leading to unique hybrid movements like Greco-Buddhist art in the South Asia. And then we have their civic monuments and infrastructure to imprint Greek culture onto newly established cities, guys, such as Alexandria in Egypt. Okay, rulers constructed quintessential Greek public spaces. Okay, so what's the impact for in this one? This civic monuments now ensured that event far from mainland, I mean, Greece, urban life across the Mediterranean and Middle East retain a distinctly Hellenistic or Hellenic, I mean, character. Okay, so I hope you're able to get the history of this. No, it's hard to remember sometimes, especially the dates and the names. But I hope you learned something from the discussion today. Okay, unless you have questions, you may ask questions. Okay, so if you want to know more about this, maybe you could search and add to to this idea by opening your, of course, go to the website, search for the topic to broaden your learnings about the our lesson today. Okay? So again, guys, uh, that's all for today. I hope you learned something. Bye, everyone.